Season 5, Episode 12, or Stay Louder, The Big Bang. With a wordplay on cosmetics branding, Trage frames the scenario explained by Sara, a naturally curious 14-year-old, an electric display vehicle, a shopping centre, and the makeup counter. This is like a Red Bull, a caged beast, Trage makes the analogy. Sort of recipe for disaster if you ask me. And, stay louder moment, much to the laughter of Alan and Sara. There's no monkeying about, leads Alan, as Sara shares another workplace story involving the zoo. Okay, you've got to listen to this one. Enjoy.
Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Create a new path, don't let the people follow your signs. Educate your mind.
Hello, and welcome to the Awww podcast, a series of playful legal dissections on the most curious and alarming events in the world of work. The podcasters Alan Girl, Trage Svetkovsky and Sara Pazell debate how to craft a better experience of work. Sit back, relax and enjoy. And remember, none of the things we talk about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work.
All right. Sara, you sent a really interesting article about an electric vehicle that was on display in a shopping centre.
Speaking of shopping centre, it's a safe one.
Meaning...
But it wasn't. As it turns out, it wasn't safe.
It wasn't.
So is there a kachow at that particular shopping centre?
Well, they're probably missing out. They have to come to North Lakes for that.
But there was a kapow.
There was a kapow, an unfortunate kapow. Electric car on display at a shopping centre reverses into Meijer shopfront. Now, I've learned from you, Alan, to disclose this is media report only, not at case law.
Correct,
okay?
Correct.
From media reports only. Recent, on Saturday, this news came out on Saturday. 3 people were hurt, and it was an electric car that rapidly reversed from its place on a display stand. So it was powered and ready to go. And you know...
And somehow there was a 14-year-old involved in this.
There was a 14-year-old, and I was going to say, you know, typically you have to have a set of keys, right, to operate vehicles, but we got all these push-button operations now. So 14-year-old had been sitting in the car on the display stand. It suddenly accelerated forward, hitting a glass panel before it reversed into the Meijer shopfront. So they haven't said yet whether the 14-year-old pushed a button, but they may have. But again, this comes back to look at all the systems at work. I wouldn't blame the 14-year-old.
It doesn't really matter, does it? It should be designed so that can't happen.
Should be designed and known that that's a possible consequence. Not probabilistic, not your risk, but that is a consequence. So if it's on display in the middle of a shopping center... Disengage it, take the battery out.
You've got to think about all these possibilities, don't you? You know, try and think about the unpredictable. But that doesn't seem that unpredictable to me.
No, I've seen the footage on the show.
You?
I've seen the broken glass. I've listened to the eyewitness, which will probably soon be eyewitness testimony. For me, and I'm just perplexed by this event, we have a dangerous item of plant. As we know,
a lot of people fail to recognise that, but cars are dangerous.
You've used the word people and fail. So for me, it's a car, and if you want to immobilise that car, take away the keys, or in this case, remove the battery. So someone walking around with their little risk assessment, whether it's on their little iPad or a clipboard, would have got tick box, likelihood of anything happening low. Yet the truth of the matter is this: the likelihood of a 1-ton piece of metal being mobilised and going forward or back,
or anyway, really,
is high.
It became embedded in the makeup counter, so all the mascaras and the foundations and the lipstick were just thrown everywhere. The loss. The Meijer department store or the makeup counter. Several loud bangs in succession were heard, and there was smoke filling the air. So that's
that happened.
Yeah. Animated.
Was it really noisy? It must have been the stay louder. Anyway, my point is we can joke and laugh about it, but the real issue is this. Risk assessments, or being so focused on green, orange, and what's the other one? Red, and being facetious, is this. Oh no, I'm really perturbed by this. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw the video after the text from Sara, because I was watching it when you texted, no. forget the whozo, forget the person who was ticking boxes. I'm talking upstream, baby. Due diligence came to my mind. I'm wondering if... No, I'm serious.
Well, hold
what?
on. Let's not jump to conclusions.
Well,
because there
finish
hasn't been an investigation.
Finish who you were thinking about.
I said if.
Yeah,
if
who were you thinking about? Who were you thinking
I
about?
would like the investigation to go beyond the checklisters, as in middle to lower management. I would like to know if anybody upstairs in the ivory tower knew.
I'm thinking God, his angels. Where are you going?
Yeah, same thing. CEOs, etc. You know.
Right.
I wonder if they knew or ought to have known, remember section 27, brackets 5, knowledge. I wonder if they knew or ought to have known that a car, let's not beat around the bush, it's a car, a massive piece of metal weighing around a ton, as I said before.
A drivable piece of machinery is...
hang on. Well, let's rephrase that.
Operable.
A moving mobile item.
There's multiple issues here. So, first of all, was the car designed in a way it could be immobilised? We don't know the answer to that. If it was designed in a way that could be immobilised, was there sufficient instruction and clarification and signs? You're a lover of signs. To indicate how you could immobilise it.
I'm not going with signs. I'm going really metaphysical here. I'm going universal. This is a car, and the presumption is, in the absence of a car being immobilised, it will move. Backwards, forwards, sideways. It's a car. And how did I test that hypothesis? Someone did move forward. Someone did move back. No, Alan, we can't dress this one up.
So I'm working with clients now to look at the way that they communicate health and safety messages or any messages that are instrumental to business performance, to the purpose of the business, right? If it's a written checklist, no matter how many X's you have, or even if it has a red, yellow, amber, and orange, green light on those charts, you need to have things come alive in meaningful ways. So what I'm working on with tech companies are visual storyboards, like a picture, a 3D photograph, or an animation, a 3D caricature, whatever you've got access to about a scenario-based, and it becomes a digital media, a shared virtual presence. There's little icons that you can label, and you can put notation and narration into this media. Could be just on your notepad, could be in VR goggles, whatever. There's different ways that this can be expressed as a mode. But we have a shared mental model because, as you rightly pointed out, there might have been a WHOSO officer who is really more a person that administers rather than strategizes, right? Or should be based on the scope of the duties. And what support do they have? But if you have an instant visual communication board that's interactive, then you can say to the CEO, the report goes immediately, sign off on this. The supplier, the designer of the equipment, a health and safety manager that might be remote, and if you were clever to have a chief work design strategist and a lawyer that works on some of the preemptive work, not just the clean up the mess kind of work in the business. You can have a look at this and people can comment, notate, narrate, and a sign off instantly, and it's all visual.
Well, this is a wonderful example of how consultation with your workers, which is a requirement, could be really useful, because how many parents would there be in that business who would say, what if my child gets in the front seat?
Absolutely.
Will they be able to start the car? Because I don't want them to.
That's a valid question.
My house is on a hill, and the last thing I want is my kid hopping in the front seat and turning the brakes off.
Spot on. No, absolutely.
And push button. We know that buses in the city
Kids love pressing buttons.
And we know that buses get stolen in the city because it's press button operation.
And it's funny, like I'm going to be a little bit more simple, because that's how I work. I'm going to break it down. Let's say this was a hardware display centre, and Dad or Mum may decide to take the kids to the hardware demo, and it was a chainsaw operator.
I knew you were going to go to a chainsaw.
Did you know that?
drill,
Well,
a
did you
chainsaw.
know? So here's
I
the
knew
thing.
you would pick the chainsaw.
How different is this saying, here you go, have a go at this fella, and filling a petrol chainsaw or having a battery on it with
Batteries
with
worse because it's so much easier to operate.
Now-
so the likelihood of it starting is high, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't do it, but if you did it, God help you.
Well, you're not going to. I've been in hardware many, many times, and I can't recall ever seeing an electric chainsaw with a battery on
There
it.
you go. Boom. Bingo.
Yeah.
Why did this car, which is a lot bigger, not that a chainsaw can't do damage, we know they can, what on earth was a big car, not a toy car, a real car.
Charged up, ready to go. Charged up and ready
the
to
thing is,
go.
we know that. There's no hypothesising. We know it was charged up and ready to go because of the consequential flow. We know it was proximately, causally linked because there's glass everywhere all over
The car moved. The car moved.
it was all glass over the makeup counter. We know it occurred. So unless this story's been fabricated, which is highly unlikely, we know it occurred. My point to this is why things have to go all the way to the top, because I know as a duty holder, I would want to know about this crap going
And it
on.
needs to be transmitted in a way where human information processing is optimized, which to me is visual storyboarding. It's not a report. It's not
No.
a checklist. You need to communicate in a way that is immediately meaningful, where aspects can be recognized instantly. And a skilled health and safety manager would be able to look at this immediately and say, hang on, has this been considered? But somebody without that same level of training, you don't need a PhD in human factors, you don't need to be a mechanical engineer, you don't need to be a 30-year experienced health and safety lawyer. You should be able to open this photo up and say, hey friends, in 6th grade of primary school, what do you think could go wrong in this image, right? Where's Wally? What happens when we miss Wally? Right?
That's right, Alan,
It
you
needs to
make a
be
point.
that simple. And that's what I'm talking about for the human factors aspects of the way we conduct our business. What's our purpose? What was the original purpose? Was it just to, build fascination in this new electric car? Was it to have lottery? Were there lottery tickets being sold? Was it enthusiasm just to give a spectacle to bring people into the shop? Well, okay, great. But how do we do this in a way that also meets our basic statutory obligations and maintains health and safety?
Well, on both the issues you're talking about, Trace, you're talking about directors' duties and officers' responsibilities, due diligence. We've seen the National Heavy Vehicle Law applied to bring home very big fines for company directors where they don't satisfy those obligations. And on the consultation, which you're talking about, we saw with Qantas, of course, they were recently received a very large fine
Consultation.
in letting a health and safety representative go, and that decision talks a lot about the obligations
Yes.
to consult and how valuable it is to consult. So these principles are out there.
And, but these basic ordinary principles, which will segue into our other story, is you essentially have a caged beast in a confined space. When you think about it, a car...
A red bull. It was a red car. It's like a
so
bull
here
with
you
a red
have-
flag.
Here you have an electronic beast in a confined space because cars are not meant to be housed in a shopping centre. It borders on bizarre. Like I really can't get my head around it in this day and age. It's bordering on the Abbott and Costello type slapstick type comedy, yet 3 people were injured for real, where the most absurd things occur. And for me, I'm thinking, wow, an energised... Yeah, look, okay, I know I'm thrashing this to death now, but an energised 1 ton or more beast inside a shopping centre, I just can't reconcile the absurd.
We don't know which is the lead agency investigating this at the moment.
New South Wales.
New South Wales. I mean, I don't know
We don't know whether it's the police or SafeWork New South Wales.
SafeWork New South Wales is involved. That was at least according to the media reports.
All right, so watch this space.
Watch this space, and whether, with my heightened state of reckless vibes, etc., are justified or not, we'll watch this space. But that does segue this caged animal into another story, Sarah. Remember recently?
What's that?
The poor zookeeper.
Oh, the zookeeper. Oh my gosh. So, you know how we've been talking about media and sports and recreation and the health and safety obligations in an arena that you don't normally think about?
I swim with crocodiles.
Yes. Well, I
Have you
had
swum with crocodiles?
No, but remember we did that case.
All right, okay, yes.
And my son flew on a flying fox over the head of a crocodile, along with the lady that got stuck. That we talked about that in a previous episode.
Yes. I mean, we can't have a season or an episode without us talking about animals, whether it's about our puppy dogs
And
or
now we're
whether
going to
it's...
monkey about a bit.
Yes.
Trapped with an ape, actually. Think long arms. Ape, right? Shocking footage, okay? In the U.S., the attendees at the zoo were saying, God help her, zookeepers trapped with a gorilla in a U.S. zoo. Again, a media report, not case law. Shocking footage captured the moment two zookeepers attempted to escape after being trapped in an enclosure with a silverback gorilla.
So if I read that case correctly, they did have a safe procedure, but for some reason they didn't follow that safe procedure on that day.
Dear Elmo, the gorilla was named Elmo. Elmo the gorilla.
And because they didn't follow the procedure, that Elmo and the keeper managed to be in the same space at the same time. It's interesting to me because systems go wrong.
Systems go wrong.
Yeah. So you need to plan for when things go wrong.
And that's talking about building resilience in a system, right? Always regulating and evaluating different scenarios as they arise. So this is one that you need to continually understand. It could happen. Zookeeper was seen running before reaching for a door, then using a two-way radio to call for help. So I'm not certain of exactly what happened for the door to lock, but somehow they're locked in with the ape. The ape crashes into a bucket of food, pauses, and watches the zookeeper. There's a little curious thought bubble above the gorilla's head, dear Elmo, thinking, what have I got here with me in my environment, right? He's standing in the doorway, and dear gorilla, checking this out. Incident occurred in the fall, so at the end of 2023. And then a second zookeeper was unable to escape until Elmo moved into an area that was far enough away from the enclosure's exit. So there was a little pathway that they were scared about traversing, right? They maintained the movements, kept watching the movements of the gorilla, and remained still after settling something down on the ground. But you've got it's on public display, right? So you've got children and parents watching this unfold, thinking, "Wow, this can really happen." People are praying. There's an emotional attachment. They're saying, "Please protect her. God help her. God help her." In the TikTok videos, right? And they're praying. So the emotional investment in barracking for the right circumstances to prevail. And yet, I can imagine they're still glued to watching this, right?
Yes,
They're sitting here glued. They've got the videos going. It's on TikTok.
So,
Yes, it's
and then what happened?
Well, it says every day the zookeepers shift the gorilla troop into their indoor habitat so that keepers can place the animal's lunch in an outdoor habitat. But there was a keeper error. And staff entered the yard unaware that the silverback was still in its habitat.
Okay.
Right? So somehow there was a lack in communication and messaging about where that gorilla was.
Wow.
So, you have to go back to the whole systems of work. Do you track the gorilla? Do you have something digital? Do you have some way to view it? Do you make sure that
Well, no one was hurt, but I think the fall down was things go wrong. Humans make mistakes.
Humans make mistakes and systems can fail too.
So this is where I think the technology that you're working with and the various people with real serious games, etc., where you would then have 101 scenarios, including the miscommunication or the mismatch of signalling, and then where the consequences could unfold. So to the most extreme point, what a better way for that to be embedded, imprinted in? It's burned in your retina.
But even more than that, needing to prepare for the scenario and just train people for behavioral responses, you're talking broader about a system of work. So there is there are videos that can do a monitoring with predictive analytics and recognize what is gorilla versus what is human, and talk about the trajectory of that movement pattern and send alerts, for example, that, hey, gorilla's still in, interlock the door, cannot open and enter this area. That could be one of many strategies that you do. What's the way of detecting? So again, when we say human error, question mark, or is it system needs? Is there a problem with the system? Because humans are fallible, and we know that. We inherit that. They're also very creative and solve problems like they did in this instance. They had to use a level of intellect and analysis of animal behavior, and they got out. So they also use their innovation. So we have to recognize the strengths of humans, but we don't want to have to always rely on a behavioral response. You want a stronger system response.
Well, yeah, it's got to be both, because I'm always mindful of then the system getting away from the behaviour, or the behavioural ignoring the system. There's got to be a complete, there's got to be linkage. Cause
it's the system providing the right information to the humans to make the best possible decisions and take the best possible actions. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I actually think this is where consultation is really valuable, because you can say to a large group of people, being your workforce, how might things go wrong? And if you've properly engaged and so they feel safe to speak up, then you can discover lots of things that you might never think of without the benefit of that broader audience.
Yeah, that's the thing we talk about when, if there's trust, if you know that the C-suite, they've got your back, then you can do that. You can engage in very frank, go back to that, the idea of candid, frank discussions about things that might go awry.
And again, it might have to have a lens of consequence. Even though the legislation talks about probabilistic risk assessments, you still want to talk about those outliers, those things that make the news, whether it's a red car that looks like the Cars cartoon movies, that drives off by itself, gotta go meet my girlfriend, or it's the Elmo, the gorilla, the fun-loving silverback gorilla that's still in his habitat, and somebody has entered his habitat. Let's just put this in context, right? You can't blame Elmo. He's just behaving like Elmo should.
As it turned out, Elmo really behaved himself.
Elmo did incredibly well.
But it's the outliers that are making the news, and it's really important you use the word outliers, but every time unions and regulators and others talk, they always say, if that's one accident, it's one accident too much, or everyone should be entitled to come home. Well, that everyone, that really is a reference to the outlier, because it's that one time. So the outliers really are not so outlierish. They're actually, they're right in the front, because they are making the news, and it's that one time you would think, how could this possibly happen to me? Next minute, you turn on the page, it's just happened to someone.
Like another mine collapse. 6 weeks of trauma in the town of Ballarat.
There we go.
Right?
Gold.
Another mine collapse in Australia.
Gold. That's right. There's gold in I've been to Ballarat. I've panned for gold.
Have you?
It's very much a gold town. Yeah, the museum's awesome. There's massive gold nuggets.
And they've had a death confirmed of one local miner, right?
Isn't it funny? Well, I just reflected. Every time we have a story, we segue in to say, I've been to these places. It's just the universe, isn't it?
Did you bring gold home?
No, because some specks. You get what's left of the tiny little bits of gold dust.
Right.
And I've mentioned that I've been underground where they've told me I was standing right where somebody has died in the past. And here we have a very confronting situation in Ballarat where a miner died underground, trapped underground.
These things, they happen.
It's an uphill battle, though. Working underground, it's not a natural environment. It's a difficult environment to manage. There's lots of technical knowledge and skill in that environment. And it's very sad when a worker dies.
Definitely be following that one. I think that's obviously gained a lot of media attention, so it'll be interesting to see.
Watch the space as the investigation unfolds.
Yeah.
We'll have to watch the space.
The union's been very vocal about that one.
Yeah, so it's just, these outliers, they just keep coming.
Educate your mind, 'cause the system keep you blind.
any new countries on board?
I'll check. We've had on LinkedIn, we've got like Pakistan person
Yeah.
following us and a few other
That's
different
fantastic.
countries.
But before we say that, yeah, should we do a couple of shout-outs? Let's do a couple of shout-outs, and then that'll segue then into this one. Have a bit of a funky one. So who wrote to us recently? Right, you start with that one and just go. Got Sri Lanka still charting in the Sri Lankan business management charts. Thank you very much. We've got just everyone. And how about all the shout-outs? Thank you very much for our local listeners.
Are you practicing or are you actually talking?
No, the tape's rolling.
Oh.
I'm just saying, we've got a lot of shout-outs from a lot of people. Who wrote to us recently?
We've certainly had a very senior person in the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator who's reached out to us and following us now, which is lovely.
Fair enough.
But
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's always nice when we get senior members of the business world who say kind things. So thank you for that.
Well, why don't we get people to go on our website, and please, if you haven't subscribed, do so, and you'll find out who these senior people are. Yeah, let's get the intrigue going. But
Seriously, just say it because he put it on public social media.
Don't say it. Get people to find out for themselves, Sarah. Don't worry about it.
Right, now I was deliberately putting a sound break in there to make your life easier.
Yeah. But how about before we do that, I've just finished lunch with you two tremendous people, and I'm
Sarah,
satisfied.
you always bring such a great lunch. Where do you get it from?
Well, we sometimes think about, anything else that we might eat, but we always revert to Cachao Vietnamese. It's Cachao Asian Kitchen, in North Lake Shopping Center. So it's like the Why Work podcast is powered by Cachao Asia Kitchen because we've just had lunch and it gives us our fuel to speak again and again and again, and I love it.
Cachao, it sounds like Kapow. Remember the original Batman?
Yes.
Kapow.
And can I just say, it's Cachao at North Lakes, and for those interested in visiting Queensland. So
this says it's an Asian fusion restaurant, and we love some of the classic Vietnamese meals.
Absolutely. Well, I'm satisfied, I must say. Probably always eat too much, but that's why I go to Pilates.
How's the Pilates going?
Going fantastic. Well, can't you tell? No backaches. I'm no longer... You've noticed I'm not much of a curmudgeon. I'm not like the Muppet.
Oh, you're a little more
so
optimistic.
you're less curmudgeon-like today.
Yeah, and I think it's the Pilates.
And the good Vietnamese food, right?
Yeah, and a big shout out to Ashley at the Emporium where I do my Pilates.
Hey, Ashley.
She straightened me right out.
Now, what about our overseas followers? How are we looking on that front?
Yeah, who we got?
We have some new followers from Pakistan, which is cool,
Pakistan.
right?
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. A lot more in the US. I'm just looking at the graphs that are coming up, right, from our listserv
And we're still charting in
distributors.
Sri Lanka. We're still charting in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Thank you, Sri Lanka.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
It'd be so nice if some of those people from overseas sent us a message and said, our laws are different. This is what happens in our country.
We've seen some now. We've got some new followers in España.
Español. That's wonderful.
I'm seeing this.
¿Cómo está, amiga? ¿Cómo estás, amigo?
More in the UK.
That's wonderful. Oh, well, I've got a couple of stories from the UK, from England specifically.
And what about the north of Europe?
The
Nothing
north
up
of Europe?
there, yeah.
Oh, in Lapland or somewhere like
all those countries up there in particularly northeast, still no Russia.
No.
Oh, I don't know. Let me check.
I don't know if you can access it. I heard no, they might be blocked. I think seriously there are issues with internet connectivity in Rus.
And what's permitted? What if the Why Work podcast is like blocked?
Yeah.
That would be fabulous. I would love that.
Yeah.
Little rebels.
That's right. No, I'm pretty sure a lot of social media is blocked.
Yeah.
But that's just the world in which we live. But that happens. We hope you enjoyed that episode of Why Work. You've been listening to Trage, Sarah and Alan. And if you'd like to know more about some of the things we've talked about today, please subscribe and we'd be more than happy to provide you with information, names of cases and other things that may interest you. Please be aware that none of the matters we've talked about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work. See you next time.
Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Create a new path and let the people follow your signs. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Create a new path and let the people follow your signs.
In my lifetime, I followed the wrong signs, a perpetrator of crime, my savior the rhyme. I got to a point and had to decide, should I educate and lead or run and hide? School, it wasn't for me, no textbooks or lunch money, bullies, detention, teacher condescension. I started bombing and wagging school. My mum's boyfriend would get drunk and